Welcome to the Ohio Department of Education's Whole Child Framework Live. We're so excited to be able to connect with all of you, and we thank you for taking the time with us to dive deeper into the Whole Child Framework and its individual elements. Over this multi-part series, we're going to take time to deconstruct the Whole Child Framework, explain its individual tenets and the practices that are under them, and use this opportunity to showcase some of the amazing work from districts that we already are seeing across the state align with the framework. A few years back, when we were developing Ohio's strategic plan, Each Child, Our Future, we made sure that the concept of the whole child was front and center. We heard time and time again across the state that a great education experience is only possible if we, as a community, collaborate to meet the needs of the whole child. But what does meeting the needs of the whole child really mean? It means that for a child to succeed in school, in learning, that child can't have an empty stomach. That child can't be physically sick or suffering from mental trauma. That child can't feel unsafe. That child can't feel disconnected from adults or not cared about by their community. When we started building the framework, we knew that community and family partnerships were going to play a major role. They're represented by the gold and red bands and encompass the entire framework itself. This is because everyone shares the responsibility of preparing children for a successful future. Addressing the needs of each child starts with parents and caregivers and extends to schools and community partners that serve children. Schools have always been places that engage in more than just academic learning. A school is a social system, people interacting with each other, and people taking care of each other. While schools have always understood the concept of meeting the needs of the whole child, we heard over and over the need for a common language and common understanding of what taking care of the whole child really means. In the middle of the infographic, you'll find the 5 tenets of Ohio's Whole Child Framework, 5 commonly held beliefs reflecting optimal student conditions leading to success in life and learning. These tenets recognize that students' basic physiological and psychological needs must be met before they can fully engage in complex learning and social activities. When students are healthy, feel safe, are supported through strong systems and relationships, are challenged and experience success, and are engaged in learning that is relevant and meaningful, they are more likely to enjoy learning, develop positive social skills, and achieve greater success. Each tenet is amplified by multiple systemic practices that define goals and outcomes that can be shared and discussed with staff, parents, and community members to create a common understanding and vision for supporting the needs of the whole child. Today, we look to explore 2 of these tenets a bit more in depth: health and safety. To start us off, we're so happy to have a brief message from State Board of Education and Whole Child Advisory Group member Meryl Johnson.
In our strategic plan, Each Child, Our Future, the following sentence appears, quote, "The path to equity begins with a deep understanding of the history of discrimination and bias and how it has come to impact current society," end quote. In many cases, this discrimination and bias result in the trauma that so many of our students experience on a daily basis. They internalize the racism which affects their feelings of self-worth, believing that they are alone with their fear and shame. I am so proud to be part of the department's Whole Child Advisory Committee, and I am excited for Ohio's new Whole Child Framework, which to me represents a gigantic hug for all of Ohio's students. The framework provides the necessary tools for educators and other stakeholders to nurture our students while creating the learning conditions that ensure each child finds some joy in school while acquiring the knowledge and skills to be successful. I have seen many factors that influence a child's educational experience. During my 40 years of teaching in the Cleveland schools, I saw firsthand how trauma, homelessness, hunger, and in general, poverty make it difficult for a child to come to school ready to learn. I saw children who were often absent, not because they were sick, but because they had to wash their blue jeans in a relative's bathtub because there was no washing machine and they had no home of their own. We all know that jeans do not dry overnight. People often say, children sure have changed from back in my day. Children haven't changed. Childhood has changed. One of the most important tenets of our whole child framework is a child's need for emotional safety. In today's world, children experience a lot that can disrupt their emotional safety. To address that effectively begins with the development of positive and caring relationships. Those relationships can lead to trust, which is essential for a child who is experiencing toxic stress because of ongoing trauma. That is why, during my teaching years, I created a workshop for teachers on cultural competence to aid in that trust development. The workshop included 10 questions for teachers to answer in small groups. I included expert responses from 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗘's book, Other People's Children. One of the most significant questions was, what can cause students to get in the not learning mode? The quote from 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗘's book, not learning tends to take place when someone has to deal with unavoidable challenges to her or his personal and family loyalties, integrity, and identity. In such situations, there are forced choices and no apparent middle ground. To agree to learn from a stranger who does not respect your integrity causes a major loss of self. The only alternative is to not learn and reject the stranger's world. That's the end of Ms. Delpit's quote. If we want to reach the whole child, that child has to feel safe with the stranger at the front of the classroom. I attempted to break down those stranger walls by making the following speech on the first day of class. First, I told my students my first name. I wrote it on the board, told them how to pronounce it, and then let them know they could not call me by my first name. Second, I pointed to a purple sign on my bulletin board that said, "No Hate Zone." Third, I told my students I wanted them to enjoy my class. That would be my goal every day. I don't know if I was always successful, but I tried very hard. The best part is that some of those relationships last. I received a call a few days ago from a student I taught in the 7th grade who was doing a Toastmaster speech on how I impacted her as a middle school child and how our relationship influences who she is today. I was quite surprised and very proud to receive that call. Teaching is challenging work. I believe the whole child framework will make that work much more gratifying, and the entire school community will benefit from happier children who feel safe and cared for, and satisfied teachers who will finally have the tools to break through the barriers standing between their students and success. Frederick Douglass once said, quote, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men," end quote. I am sure Mr. Douglass would love the whole child framework hug. Thank you.
As educators, we often look to support healthy behaviors that give students knowledge and skills to make decisions that positively impact their health and social emotional well-being. Schools engage students in health education, physical education, and social emotional lessons and activities. Likewise, we know that students learn best and are given the opportunity to thrive in a safe environment. These components include creating a positive school climate and culture, addressing students' emotional and physical safety, and ensuring the school's physical environment and grounds are also safe. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to talk to two superintendents that are taking these definitions of the work to new levels. Joe Spicia, superintendent of Wickliffe City Schools, and Dr. Talisa Dixon, superintendent of Columbus City Schools. In Wickliffe, they've designed and implemented the Family Resource Center, located in Wickliffe High School. This resource center offers healthcare services through a nurse practitioner, counseling services for individuals and families, And it hosts special programs such as bloodmobiles, youth activities, and educational programming. In Columbus City Schools, the goal has been to ensure their students and staff learn and work in a safe and positive school environment. To help accomplish this, Columbus City Schools has strengthened its tiered behavior system, using a consistent and intentional process to identify and align instructional, social-emotional learning, and behavior supports. The district worked across academic departments to develop a multi-tiered system of supports, administrative guide. The guide identifies pillars of core instruction and incorporates academic, behavioral, and social-emotional learning into tiered supports using a decision tree. Let's hear what they had to say about these initiatives. Great. So, Joe, Talisa, Cheryl, thanks so much for joining me today. Let's do a quick round of introductions. I'm Paulo 𝗟𝗓𝗓, State Superintendent of Public Instruction here at the State Department of Education. Joe, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Joe Specia. I'm the superintendent of the Wickliffe City School District.
And Talisa Dixon, Superintendent of Columbus City Schools.
Cheryl Ward, Director of Social, Emotional, and Student Support Services for Columbus City Schools.
I'm so excited, not only for the recent release of our whole child framework, but for the fact that we get to showcase some of the great things you all are doing in your district that align beautifully with what the framework is all about. Joe, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit, Wickliffe has this Family Resource Center. Tell us a little bit about what that is and the kind of services you're providing.
Well, we could probably go back 6 or 7 years anyway in a vision, and we took a look at our students really, and we took a look at our families, and we saw this changing demographic, and we felt like we had to do more than just provide instruction and content. So we developed this concept of a Family Resource Center, and what it has become, and the services we provide include counseling services, individual, family, group counseling, social work services. We provide healthcare services through a nurse practitioner. We provide physicals, flu shots, vaccinations, well child care, acute care, and so forth. We rent space to WIC in Lake County area. We provide dental services on a regular basis, but not an everyday basis. We provide food insecurity. We meet people's food insecurity needs. We provide clothing, housewares. If you need it, we will provide it to you or find it. And then we do a lot of educational programming. We do work with hospice, the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, recovery centers. We do tutoring and so forth. What we try to do is do everything we can to help everybody in the community prosper, to be healthy and happy and whole.
That's fantastic. I love how so you identified the need and then you built onto what you were already doing at the school to meet those needs with the Resource Center. Talisa, you're taking a little bit different approach. You're looking for ways to integrate some of the supports more directly in the day-to-day activities of the school through a multi-tiered system of supports administrative guide. Say a little bit about what a multi-tiered system of supports is and what inspired you to take on an idea to develop a guide for how to do it well.
Oh, wow. So first and foremost, we knew that equitable education system for all of our students was a priority for Columbus City Schools. And we knew that this system had to be based on each student's strengths. It had to support their needs. The district must be fully engaged and support this in order for the schools to have the resources that they need. That was paramount because we knew that if students didn't have access, then we could not ensure high quality education. So this guide is this district's commitment. Stakeholders coming together and say that we are going to be committed to providing resources, on-demand resources for all of our stakeholders. So not only a guide in paper form, a booklet, but also you can go to the website and there are links that are ready for teachers to click on rather, and you have those resources right in front of you. That was, to me, very essential to changing the culture of how we do business in the district. It first had to stay with the district, so what the district is going to invest in. for all of our staff members and for all of our students.
Yeah, that notion of the multi-tiered really allows you to customize your approach for every student based on their own needs at the different levels.
Oh, not only that, we know that you have to have those 4 key elements: the academic, the social, the emotional, and the behavior needs, right? And then what does it look like at the district level, the school level, and even in the classrooms? And if you don't have that structured and provide a template for our teachers, then it's very difficult for them to imagine what it looks like and who owns it. If the district owns it, then then teachers, schools would feel that they would get supports. And then the teachers in the school building would believe that they would get the supports in the classroom. So that we believe that what this guide is going to provide, that template for everyone in our organization to get, have that on-demand information.
Perfect. So these efforts are designed to help students. Joe, how are students and community members responding to the Family Resource Center, and what are the benefits they're gaining?
Yeah, we like to think in terms of what do the numbers look like. And what we're seeing is with our counseling services, the caseloads are increasing. We had to actually add an additional counselor.
There's a real need out there, isn't there?
Yes, there's a lot of need for mental health counseling, and we felt it was really important to engage the families in the process. As far as healthcare and dental care, if we look at that, hundreds of families have taken advantage of it. Our nurse practitioner has a regular practice in our school building and works with our students, and we bring dental care in twice a year, and they again have a regular practice. Many of our students, only see the dentist when we bring the dentist in. Our WIC services provide care for about 100 clients a week, every week. As far as families go, and it's nice, this is a really nice conversation for me because we're small and Columbus is large. We have provided, since March of last year, over 3,000 families regular meals.
Incredible.
And that's something that we're really proud of, and that speaks to community response. We clothe hundreds of families. We just had a drive with Coats for Kids and gave away 150 coats to our students. That was just last week. And then we've set up apartments, we've set up homes with housewares and so forth for our families, with people who are coming from someplace who have nothing. They need everything. We bring it to them, right down to bedding and so forth. So the community's response has been terrific. And what's really gratifying for us is not only do we do it, but our community does it.
Yeah.
Donations every day from our community members.
People want to help. Sometimes they just have to be asked.
Absolutely. Our students actually run our, what we call the WIC closet. They actually run our clothing and food insecurity pantries.
Perfect. Talisa, in Columbus City, you all are partnering with Panorama Education to do some student surveying, which is another way to kind of gauge what's going on with your students. Say a little bit about that partnership and what you're gaining from surveying your students.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl Ward to speak on that. Okay, Cheryl?
So we have had the opportunity, one of the things we wanted to take a look at is what is the baseline of our young people? When we take a look at tiered support, we have our academic component, we have our behavioral component, certainly the social, emotional space and competencies. How do we teach our young people and give them the skills so that they can sustain post-graduation? Mm-hmm. With everything going on in the world, and then particularly now, we've got COVID, there has been some things happening in our community that we really want to help our young people be aware of. And so a part of what happened with Panorama is uplifting student voice. And Dr. Dixon is very keen on student voice and making sure that we understand and hear their perspective. So they're effective surveys for students. We started with the well-being and the back to school. That was very important as we were taking a look at our back to school proposals. What did the plan look like? How do we hear the voice? And so as a part of that, we were able to recognize our young people, where they felt connected, where they didn't feel connected. We are still looking at the data now, but it's really being able to bring out some themes, helping us to tier those supports, So what are the common themes that are occurring? What are those differences? What is surfacing as difference in different populations and different groups? And how does that inform the work, not only at a district level, but at a building level and at an individual student level, to do what Dr. Dixon had talked about a little earlier, and that is make very intentional responses, or have very intentional responses to our students' needs. Because if we understand the needs and we meet the needs, then we can help remove barriers that allow our young people to feel safe, to feel supported, and to be able to function well academically.
And that's really what it's all about, right? Helping to address some of those barriers. Joe, you're doing that through the Family Resource Centers. What does that mean to your students from an academic perspective? What are you seeing them in a position to better take advantage of the academic experience that you offer at Wycliffe?
I think three things jump out to us. First and foremost, attendance. And, generally our attendance is good, but if we look at our chronic truancy rates, that's what's changed. Those rates are dropping, and they drop significantly because a number of students didn't come to school and that because could be they're hungry. They didn't have the clothing. They had lice. We provide even those supports for students. So our chronic truancy rates have dropped. And significantly so, by about 50%. The second thing that we've seen is an increase in participation, and I mean after school participation, whether that's athletics or other extracurricular activities or our after school tutoring programs. Those things have increased. It's simple to say, when we provide physicals for kids who otherwise couldn't get them, they get to participate. They get to play. They get to be part of something bigger and important to them. And the other thing that we've seen a decline in is behavioral referrals, suspensions, and so forth, because we believe that when a student feels supported and cared for, they're going to respond in a manner that is going to be positive. And those are the three big things we've seen. Can we identify improvements in grade point average and those kinds of things yet? No. But will we see improvements? I believe yes.
Right. You can tell. Now, in Columbus, so you've got the administrative guide, you've got this survey data. What are you seeing as the impact in terms of students' academic participation, accomplishment, and so forth?
Well, I know one of the things that we're looking at and seeing is how do we had our MTSS framework, but really with the guide, it's strengthening it. And it's making sure that when we have our intervention assistance teams and we have our PBIS teams working together, that they're working together holistically on the academic side, on the behavioral health side, on the social emotional side, and strengthening. One of the things that the guide will do is anchor everyone. And so as a part of the guide, we have decision trees. We have decision trees academically. We have some instructional pillars of support. We have decision trees from a social emotional. We've linked them back to the ODE, SEL standards, right? So people will know, if I'm dealing with this issue, if I'm looking at the Panorama data and I'm seeing this as a need, how do I link this back not only to the lessons that Panorama offers, because they have a playbook, but also to the ODE standards, so that we ensure that our young people are learning and developing the skills and acquisition to be able to be successful. And so really comprehensively having everyone anchored in the same place with the district as large as Columbus City is a huge accomplishment for us. And we're quite excited to be able to give up something, people a place to go to.
Yeah, it's important to have a common language, right? So that we all understand the same terminology. What do you do in the different circumstances? I love the idea of a decision tree because it gives some structure that otherwise might not exist, and then people are kind of doing their own thing, and you don't have that consistency or a through line, a common understanding of what's happening. Joe, I want to understand a little bit more about, what are your future plans for the Resource Center? Are you going to do more marketing, more community outreach? How do you see its next steps?
Well, before I say that, Celicia and Cheryl, I am so very impressed with Columbus. Congratulations to you guys, great work. For us, we have hired a service coordinator at the Family Resource Center, a full-time position, and that person's job, her name is Leah, is responsible for our marketing plan and getting the good word out there. And one of the things that we've done that's very successful is we run a lot of family programs. For example, Halloween program. We ran a drive-through Halloween program this year. Other than creating a huge traffic jam, we made a lot of families very happy, and it gave us an opportunity to pass out literature and to talk directly to people. And our partners were there. We do a Christmas program, same idea there. But then, we've taken great advantage of social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and all those kinds of things. And then in addition, we just go out and I'll say we reach out and touch families. We personally invite them into programs, and we have our partners do the same thing. And we have such a great staff, such a great group of people. And it's the human beings that make the program so great. And Julie Ramos, our Director of Strategic Innovation, had the vision for the center. And she has been the person who has made it so very real, because that real positive approach that we take, we never say no. We say yes to anything and everyone. And after we say yes, we figure out how to get it done for them.
Families and community members really value that personal connection, right? They might be just the slightest moment, but it really brings them in and makes them all the more want to be partners and working towards the success of every student. So Lisa, say a little bit more about, the next steps in terms of the work you're doing and what you see as the growth trajectory.
Well, thank you. So our next step is we're working on our five-year strategic plan. And so this work is really advance that work. We know that we have to be whole child centered, period. And I think the hardest thing for districts, especially our size, is to get that sustainable system.
Yes.
Because once you have that sustainable system in place, it will correlate to effective practices. And those effective practices are the ones that people will remember. So we were intentional when we linked it back to ODE. It goes back to that conversation earlier. So we have a system where we link it back to the work that's being done by the state. So no one can say this is just CCS work alone. It is a bigger system where everybody is tapping into the same set of resources, but are picking out those specifics that are germane to their communities and with their students. So it's really what the district setting a platform so that each building has the resources to affect every single student in every single classroom. And I think that's the power of this work and the power of collective efficacy of the entire state. And with leaders like Cheryl and with other superintendents and Whitcliffe, all joining together and say that we as a state are going to be centered on the whole child. And here's some resources that can really help us get to the next level. So we're excited about that.
Absolutely. Listen, I love having had this conversation because we have small and large, and you're both taking different approaches, which always is the beautiful thing about Ohio. Different strokes for different folks. It's never one size fits all. You get to decide what makes the most sense. And at the same time, I also love the fact that nothing that we've talked about here today is outside the reach of other districts. They can listen to you, they can see whether they fit within what you're doing, and they can say, well, I'm gonna do that, or I'm gonna adapt it, and do exactly the same kind of thing. Address the needs of every student. Thanks so much for what you do each and every day, and thanks for joining me today. One of the most exciting parts of our work here at the department is seeing schools and districts implement initiatives that we have collaboratively designed. And this goes the same for the Whole Child Framework. We got to hear about Wycliffe's Family Resource Center and Columbus City Schools' Multi-Tiered System of Supports Guide. And we're seeing other schools across the state putting great work and initiatives together that align with the framework. Here are a few other examples that we're so proud to showcase. The Whole Child Framework is an important bridge between schools, families, and communities. We're excited for the release of the framework itself, but remember that it's just the foundation. I look forward to seeing how many more schools and districts customize the framework and use it to create the conditions that support the success of their local learners, the success of the whole child. Are you interested in learning more about the Whole Child Framework? I invite you to visit our website at education.ohio.gov/wholechild. Do it today to view the framework for yourself. There you can find a number of resources and guides to help you on your journey to using the framework and configuring it to meet the needs of your local education community. In addition, on January 28th, we'll again be live to review more elements of the framework and highlight some other great examples from schools and districts from across the state. As always, feel free to contact us with any questions or suggestions that you may have on implementation or ideas. Thank you for what you do each and every day for Ohio students, and we'll see you again soon.